Is this on? Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of Is This On podcast. I'm your host, Karthi. In the previous episode, you heard my conversation with a young and budding ambient music composer, Mr. Eashwar. He's a good friend of mine, and we have been talking about music, life, and much more. In addition, we also heard Eashwar's journey into the world of music, how he accidentally stumbled into making music on his own for an office event using his keyboard, and how it in turn got him fascinated about music production. In this episode, you will hear about how he went on to learn to produce music professionally under the able guidance of the lead guitarist of none other than A.R. Rahman, and creating ambient music without realizing that he is doing so, and then discovering the world of ambient music. So before we begin, I would like to thank Anchor.fm for providing this wonderful platform for me to post my podcast and share it with the world. If you are like me and you wish to create your own podcast, it is quite simple. Just create an account with Anchor.fm and start recording your podcast. Without any further delay, let's pick it up where we left off.
I went and did a music production course, and that really got me to also open up and listen to a lot of music, right? I mean, because as I did this music production course, one of the things I had to do was to also start composing music and trying to create tunes which could be good. And of course, I had a tough master basically, because I mean, you know that the level of expertise or the kind of musicality that is expected from somebody of his stature, someone who has already worked with a genius like A.R. Rahman. You know that you have to push yourself if you really want to get there, right? So in a way, it was good because it kind of opened me into listening to a lot of music outside the conventional film music or the conventional music that we are all used to listening to, right? So there is a whole world of music out there, not just it's not about just Michael Jackson or Hindi film songs or all that. There's a whole set of musicians there, particularly ones from Scandinavian musicians, or if you take even in the UK underground. I mean, there's so much of brilliant music that's coming out, and there is something like Jazztronica, basically electronic music with jazz, and you also have noise music and different kinds of music, right? And what I kind of got from there is that that music kind of sounded very different, right? It basically didn't have any structure really, and it sounds very cinematic. It sounds very ethereal in that it kind of gives a sense of space. Right. And then I started also listening into ambient music, basically. And I realized that that particular kind of genre doesn't require you to follow any structure. And then I started reading about this concept of synthesis. Right. And so there's this concept of synthesis in sound, and where you basically cancel out, you basically are able to engage with different kinds of sounds and modulate them and design them in whatever way. You can basically tweak the sounds in whatever way you want. So something like that. So in a sense, there's a whole range of a whole universe of knowledge out there on that, and that kind of led me to think that, hey, I mean, there is a way to use your imperfection in maybe lack of tone or any of that into bringing it in a form that is also musically acceptable, or it sounds musically nice. So that is how I kind of got into this ambient music genre and started putting out tracks.
So this ambient music is a genre? It's a separate genre, is it?
Yes, so ambient music is basically a genre of music which has its origins all the way around 1830s. It's pretty,
Wow. Okay.
it's a very old form of music. One of the early proponents of ambient music was Eric Satie.
Oh,
You must have heard, for people, you must have heard a lot of that music in the lift, the elevators that
yes.
you go, and his music, I can particularly recommend the Troy gymnopede, right? That is, if anybody is interested, you should just Google Eric Satie and listen to his Troy gymnopede, and it's an amazing set of music, right? It's an amazing piece of music, and he's basically done, he's basically made music which conveys a lot of space, and
Right.
mind you, it is alluringly simple but extremely complex to play on your piano, right? Because the way
Okay.
he kind of brought out that sound, they basically, his contemporaries used to call it furniture music, right? Because
Okay.
during the time that he actually made this kind of music, it was very heavy on orchestral. I mean, of course, you had moved from chamber music. Chamber music was more like what Bach and then Beethoven and all these guys used to do. But then after these composers, there came a time where it kind of brought in this minimalist kind of genre, right? So Eric Satie was perhaps this one of these people who brought in that kind of a genre slowly, because the idea there was that he wanted to create an environment rather than having people to pay serious attention to this. And that is the whole thing about ambient music, right? The thing with ambient music is that it is about conveying a sense of space, and you don't really have to pay attention to it. But at the same time, when you listen to it, you find it, hey, this is nice. It helps me focus, or it helps me do my thing. And I like listening to it, right? I mean, that is the kind of feeling that a listener would get, and when they
Right.
listen to ambient music. So and again, ambient music has evolved in incrementally and tremendously to incorporate a lot of things. But ambient music itself um, did not get its name until perhaps the late 1960s or 70s, when
Okay.
this particular person called Brian Eno,
Right.
who is considered the founding father of ambient as a genre, right? So he
Oh.
was basically a guitarist, and he also used to produce some music, but he was primarily a sound engineer, if I recollect
Hmm.
properly. But he kind of came up with this idea about ambient music, in a very strange fashion. And I was reading a book about him, and how he kind of got into ambient music. So he basically ended up having he was just about to meet somebody, and he met with an accident, and he was lying in the hospital, and
Right.
as he was just lying there and there was nobody around, the sound of the fan and the rattling of the windows,
Right.
in his hospital room, it kind of gave him a strange sense of peace. Right, I mean, it was like, hey, this sounds very nice, rhythmic, but at the same time, it's very peaceful. It's not,
So how
and
is it that he took the inspiration from that? That's quite nice.
yeah, so that is, I mean, it's strange how he actually did that. I mean, but then, inspiration comes in very strange ways. And then he was like, so he kind of found that there's a lot of power in the natural sounds that you hear, right? And
Right.
ambient music is all about that. It's about bringing in that harmony with natural sounds, and trying to bring in a musical pattern in that. So
Right.
he kind of started off this thing on drone music,
Hmm.
right? And drone music is basically, it just goes in a set of series of harmonic notes, or it just goes in a small pattern that just keeps extending for a very long time. But then, over the period, what has also happened, and similarly, there is this great composer called Philip Glass, who is considered one of the pioneers of minimalist music. So he also used to create these repetitive patterns of music, which strangely is quite alluring. In fact, anybody interested should listen to Philip Glass's Einstein on the beach.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That is the name of the album. And if you want an introduction to Brian Eno, you should listen to Brian Eno's Music for Airports. That is, these are the two seminal albums, right, which kind of define, the way ambient music has kind of come in. And then from there on, there have been a lot of changes that have come in. Like you've had a person like John Cage, and you had Philip Reich, and you also have a lot of other new ambient musicians. Off late, you have in recent times, you have a lot of electronic music, very gentle electronic music that kind of is seeping into ambient music. And one of the good people who actually do that today is Olafur Alnals and Nils Fram. These are two musicians who do excellent work there. And the way ambient music has today progressed is that it has become very inclusive, in the sense that it has encompassed almost every genre that's available.
I see.
In film music, if you want to really listen to how the impact of ambient music, you should listen to Interstellar, right? I think if you listen to that score by Hans Zimmer, you basically have nothing there, right? It's basically a spaceship that's traveling through time, and the way he kind of puts that, there's this track called Cornfield Chase. You should listen to that track, and then it basically encompasses what ambient is all about, and in the modern times, and how a lot of these things can kind of come in.
Yeah. So truth be told, when I was watching that movie, the least thing that was running in my mind was the ambient music in the background. So
Yeah.
So that's the kind of that movie. So these are very these are really deep knowledge of music that you have. You have such an deep knowledge of music, not just music. Like you have very deep knowledge of the history of what you are trying to do. I mean, I'm just stunned at the level of information that you have, and you have that. Even when you talk about it, you have the. I could sense that energy and passion, like when you're talking about music, right? So this is like really awesome, man. That's one of the reasons that I really wanted to talk to you and understand your journey in this you've just embarked on this, I guess. And I wanted to understand, like, so initially when I know you said that you sort of went into music production from being trying to learn piano, where you thought that could really take years and years to sort of get master the role, and you wanted to do something little different, and you wanted, I mean, do something that you really wanted to maybe express your interest, right? So something like that, right? So how did that um, uh, like journey take place? Like I guess what I'm trying to ask you is that, so when you started this musical journey, what was it that you were actually trying to do? Like, was it that you wanted to start create tracks and albums and stuff like that, or was it just that, oh, I noticed I have some musical background. I have did some Carnatic and classical training, and I have did some I've taken some piano classes. I know the basic notes and stuff like that. Now I learned a little bit of the music production. So should I just bring all this together and just see what it comes out of, or was it like your actual goal of, okay, I want to start creating these tracks and release these albums?
Yeah, so you see, the thing with music is, it's an ocean, so you're always trying to learn, right? See, the
Correct.
only motivation I had was I want to create something new, right? I mean, it was all about creating and basically playing around
Yeah.
this to see, how what I can create, what I can really come up with, right? And the
Yeah.
motivation for that was, the advice from my mentor, Sanjeev Thomas, who runs this school called Rainbow Bridge, and also
Hmm.
Vivek Santosh, who was my piano teacher at,
Right.
initially, wherein the stress was always on building, honing the musicality, and improving your sense of music, ensuring that you
Hmm.
have. So for me, it was all about saying that, let me stretch myself and see how far I can go on this, right? I mean, it was never about, hey, I want to create this album, I want to put it in, and I want to become,
Right.
super rich or anything like that. It is still never about
Okay.
that. It is all
Right.
about the joy of creating something new, right? And that is what has driven me. That is what actually motivated me has been motivating me for a very long time. And I can tell you, I started putting out tracks. I started randomly creating tracks, and also I had to practice the software that I was being taught, right, on music production.
Right.
So I had to, I used to create these tracks, then put it out, and at least get some feedback, and then it went on, right. And
Right.
I started putting out more and more stuff. I started listening, and every time I used to create the track, I used to think, hey, why isn't it sounding as good as all the records all the music I'm listening to on iTunes or on Spotify and all that. And I was like, I need to really build on this. And my only goal was, let me improve my sound, right? And let me improve the technique on how to create sound, and also trying to make sure that I'm able to create something unique. I didn't want to do something which someone else has already done, because I know that
Right.
there's a person who is better than me. There's somebody who's better than me who's already done that, who's achieved it. But
Yeah.
and I think that is true for any art form or any artist, that everyone has to find their specific, you know um, space where they are able to add some new color, a new perspective to
Correct.
the art form, right? And
Definitely. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, in the form that has already been followed. Well, sure, if you think about this from an economic perspective, or you think about it in terms of what sells, then obviously you go down that road path of doing what is already done, and maybe you make some
Mm.
tweaks here and there, because end of the day you just have 7 notes, right? And
Correct.
you have to play around with these 7 notes to create the same set of tunes.
Right.
I read a paper the other day where they said that they basically invented an artificial intelligence engine, which kind of has deciphered, that there are about a maximum of about 300,000 tunes and nothing more.
Wow. Okay.
Right. I mean, that's just about it. But I don't know, but 300,000. I don't know the exact number, but it kind of says that there are only so many tunes that are possible, or something like that. But so for me here, it was all about. For me here, it was all about trying to develop my own sound broadly,
Right.
and trying to see how I could better it. What
So,
could I do with
so
with the
sort of,
sound? Yeah.
sort of get your voice out kind of thing. So
Uh, not
make
not
you
really getting my voice out, but it's more of an experimentation, right? I mean, the idea
right.
of, I kind of bought myself. I brought in the software that I needed to create music and to kind of produce, and I used to listen to a lot of inputs that a lot of these big guys were giving out. All the masters in music, were
Right.
giving out, and I started reading up religiously on the techniques, and trying to understand how they do what they do, right? And then trying to
Right.
see if I can do something in my own way. So it's never
Something.
about, it was never. So I gradually, started putting out music. I started putting out music on this platform called SoundCloud, and that's an amazing platform. And I started putting out music, and of course, the first set of people I used to send out my works were my immediate and extended family.
Right.
and and that I used to, and of course they'll be very kind to you. They're not going to say that your music
Right.
is trash. So they'll say,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, yeah, this sounds nice and very good, and you're like, okay, and then
Yeah.
you go ahead and you keep trying your own thing, and you go on, and for a fact, and I mean, as an artist, or anybody who is in the art, there is
Right.
an intuitive feeling that you have on whether the final output is good or not, right? You already know
Right.
it. I mean,
Right.
though you send it out for validation, the
Mm.
first judge is you, right? So you already know
Correct. Right.
what you produced. So I went about doing this, and then slowly I realized that, and as I was getting feedback, and I used to, you know, without any hesitation, send it out to as many people as possible. I mean,
Mm.
I basically would spam everybody's WhatsApp group, any WhatsApp group, and all of that. Just keep putting
Okay.
out tracks and then sending it out. Put out tracks on SoundCloud,
Right.
then send it out. Put out tracks, and so I built a routine of creating a track every day. So
Wow.
I would
Okay.
like come back after work. So after work, at about 6, 7, on days when we really didn't have any meetings or anything, or even if we had, after that, I would sit with my keyboard, keep
Mm.
playing my stuff, go on until 2, 3 in the morning, put
Wow.
out my track, finish the track, and then put it out on SoundCloud, and
Yeah.
just keep posting it on my Facebook page, and that's the good thing about social media today, right? I mean, you don't
Right.
have to spend too much. I mean, you can publicize your work in any form and in as many ways as possible, right? And you can do
Right.
that. So once I got on to do these, I kept doing these things, and the funny thing about music is that as you keep doing these things on a day-to-day basis, you actually get better. So, and this is not something I'm saying. I read this biography of Philip Glass, and a very
Right.
interesting biography. I would encourage everyone to, anybody and everybody to actually read that. And he kind of he wrote somewhere that he felt that he kind of joined a music school, and he started planning to play something, and he felt that as he went on doing it, he felt, hey, I'm getting better and better. So it's not like and I mean, of course, people tend to think that music is something that comes from
Right.
somewhere and all of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there are two things, right? As with any work,
Mm.
if it is talent is something that, okay, it's, to my mind, talent is basically your intrinsic motivation to do something. It is
Right.
not something that is ordained in you. I mean, if you're motivated to do something, motivated to learn something, you will do it no matter what, right? And you will find a way to do it. So my sense here is that so you had this idea, and there was a motivation to kind of see, okay, let me see what I can do next, right? And
Right.
perfection has never been the aim,
Right.
and being able to put out your work in whatever way it is, right? Don't
Right.
worry too much about being perfect and all of that, but make sure that you at least put out your work. And that is what a lot of these musicians also say. They were saying that you shouldn't wait, you should publicize your work as much as possible, in the sense that get as much of feedback as you can and
Right.
put it out and all that. So I used to post it in all different communities, and strangely, it so happened, and I was not aware of this. So there, there's this particular guy who goes by the moniker of Three Oscillators,
Okay.
and he is basically an electronic musician, and he kind of heard my track, and
Hmm.
he said. And he kind of sent me a message on SoundCloud saying, "Hey, your track is sick." I mean, when they say sick these days, it basically means that your track is really good. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay. So I was like, okay. So, and then he kind of said, you know what? There's this ambient music producer community, and then I got introduced to Varun Desai, who is one of the leading pioneers of ambient music in our country, and he's a respected DJ and electronic musician and ambient music producer himself, who goes by the moniker of Yidam on the ambient music space. And so, he also, then followed up with, he kind of gave me the right kind of inputs on, what he thought about the music. And there were a whole bunch of other guys. There's another guy called Ashwin Menon who heard my stuff. And all of them, they're all, it's a nice little community. And I got introduced to this whole universe of independent artists. Right, and I was like, wow, there's so much of work that's happening, and so much of beautiful work that's happening in this space.
It's like a completely new world open to you.
Yeah.
You didn't even know that existed before.
I didn't know. I mean, I was totally. I didn't know that there's something like this, and I was just going around, just putting my stuff. I didn't know who was going to listen. I was just going on, and then one day this whole thing happened, and I'm like, wow. So. And then that's when, you kind of get the confidence, right? As much as we say that we're not looking for validation, see, the idea of making music, to quote Elton John, is that, you don't make music for yourself. You make music for others to hear, right? I mean, if your music if you can't reach out, if your music can't reach out to people, then what's the point, right?
What's the point? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like see, music is like food, right? I mean, if you make good food at home, but if there's nobody to eat it, then cooking is an art, right? I mean, similarly with any art form.
It basically becomes a moot point, basically.
Yes.
And with that, I think we will end the second part of the episode here. In the next episode, Eashwar and I talk more about this ambient music genre, talk about how people still have this antiquated notion of being a music composer, talk about the evolution of music genre that is currently happening, and much more. I thank Anchor.fm for providing a wonderful podcast platform to host some really amazing podcasts, including mine. Don't forget to check out my other podcast at anchor.fm/Karthi. Until next time, stay tuned, stay safe, catch you in the next one.